You're watching KSL, Utah's source for news.
Well, I was awakened by shots this morning about 5:55 a.m. and it was 5 continual shots. Bam, 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 bam.
Horrible scene in Draper as police investigate a shooting that killed a Draper police officer and put a neighborhood on lockdown for hours this morning. KSL has a team coverage of today's events. Catherine May spoke with one of the first witnesses on the scene today. Devin Dolan talked with residents in the area about the lockdown. Shara Park has been looking into the life of Sgt Derek Johnson. But we begin tonight with news specialist Andrew Wittenberg, who has the latest on the investigation. Andrew.
Good evening, Keith. Yes, so many questions really at this point remain for authorities as to exactly what happened in the moments leading up to the point when shots were fired. We do know that Sgt Derek Johnson encountered 2 people, a man and a woman, here in Draper. Shots were fired. Sgt Johnson was killed, the 2 others critically wounded, but we don't know much else other than that, other than an officer was killed.
Today, Sgt Derek Johnson was tragically murdered.
It began before 6 a.m. near 138th South and Fort Street in Draper. First, unrecognizable radio communication by Draper Sgt Derek Johnson. And moments later,
several calls were made by citizens reporting shots fired.
When officers responded, they found Sgt Johnson along with another man and woman shot. Police contained the nearby area and began a search looking for who they initially believed was the shooter. But their attention soon came back to where it all began.
Through the investigation, we have learned and believe that the adult male and or adult female are responsible for the shooting. We do not believe there are any other outstanding suspects.
Sgt Johnson was pronounced dead at Intermountain Medical Center. The unidentified man and woman shot in the encounter are still in critical condition.
Today, Draper City is saddened with this tremendous loss in our history.
The investigation continues into what exactly happened in the early morning hours, but even answers will likely not make amends for the loss of such a young, dedicated, and loved officer.
Derek Johnson, age 32, leaves behind a loving wife, family, father, mother, and brothers and sisters.
Some obvious emotion in our updates this afternoon from both Draper City officials as well as members of the leadership from the Draper Police Department. We do understand there is a candlelight vigil here at Draper City Hall tonight at 8 o'clock. Although Unified Police are now handling the investigation as far as detectives investigating what led up to the shooting. We do expect one more update from authorities as to what happened tonight. Keith, we will be sure to keep you posted.
Still a lot of unanswered questions tonight. Andrew Wittenberg, thanks from Draper. Sgt Johnson, a highly respected member of the law enforcement community, leaves behind a wife and young son. Shara Park joins us now with more on his life. Shara.
Yeah, Keith, Sgt Johnson grew up in Utah, even married his high school sweetheart.
Those who knew Sgt Derek Johnson say 2 of the things that he loved most in this life were his family and being a police officer.
He was a very dedicated, devoted, and highly decorated police officer.
Sgt Johnson grew up in Utah. He attended Alta High School and graduated in 1999. While in high school, he was an Explorer Scout for the Sandy City Police Department. Utah State Representative Lee Perry was his supervisor.
Ever since I met him when he was 16 years old or almost 17, and the kid was so focused on always wanting to be a police officer.
After high school, Sgt Johnson married his high school sweetheart. Perry says he worked as a dispatcher and eventually went to the police academy. For the past 8 years, he's been working for the Draper City Police Department.
He was hired as a reserve police officer in April in 2004, and later hired as a full-time police officer in December of that same year.
In 2012, Sgt Johnson was honored with the Distinguished Service Medal for his work on an investigation involving a child abuse homicide case. His dedication to his job is no surprise to Representative Perry, who's remained in contact with him over the years.
He told you that's what he was going to do. I mean, it was not a matter of just seeing and watching him and going, oh, yeah, this guy's going to be a policeman. He flat out told me, I'm going to be a police officer. I'm going to do this.
And I spoke with Sgt Johnson's father by phone this afternoon, and as you can imagine, his entire family is just devastated by this. He told me that the family is just trying to wrap their heads, Keith, around what has happened.
Yeah, sad case today. Thank you, Sheriff. Number of Draper residents woke up to the sound of gunshots this morning. Several of them immediately picked up the phone and called 911. News specialist Catherine May spoke with some of the people who were near the crime scene this morning. She continues our team coverage. Catherine.
Well, a lot of people were startled by those gunshots, as you can imagine, Keith. They ran outside to see what was going on. I spoke to one woman who's a nurse, and she says the officer's car crashed right across the street from her house, and she went out to see if she could help.
The first thing that woke me up around 5:30 was the gunshot. I heard a single shot, and then we heard the crash.
Chris Zelag got out of bed and went outside to find a police officer's car crashed in the field across the street from her house.
Then the fire truck showed up, so paramedics were on scene, and they had just barely pulled the officer out of the car, and they were doing CPR.
Zelag says paramedics worked on the officer, performing CPR for what seemed like a half an hour or more.
They had several switch outs, so it was going on a long time.
An ambulance drove the officer down the street to a medical helicopter, and police from several agencies across the valley showed up to search the area.
We knew something was real wrong when we saw the officers going back to their trunk to start pulling out the assault rifles.
Zelag says it was around 7 or 7:30 when they saw K-9 units and the SWAT team.
No, it was just mass confusion after that, just officers every place. I've never seen so many officers on scene.
A number of streets were shut down for miles, and many residents were told to stay inside their homes.
There's one guy that lives 3 houses down from us to the north, and he said he woke up to SWAT completely surrounding his barn.
Amid all the commotion, Zelag says she felt helpless. As a nurse, she wished there was something she could do.
And I just wanted to help any way I could, but we're also taught not to get in the way, so.
Well, as you can imagine, some of those residents were a little nervous when they saw all the police in the area with assault rifles. But again, authorities say they are not looking for any more suspects.
All right, Catherine May and Draper tonight. Thanks. News specialist Devin Dolan has been in the neighborhood all afternoon talking with residents as the investigation unfolds. Devin, what have you learned today?
Well, Keith, as you can imagine, many neighbors say they've been completely shaken up all day. Some say they saw officers and K-9 units in their own backyard. At the time, they had no idea why. They were told by officers to stay inside of their homes. Many say they found a way to keep their eye on the investigation. A quiet neighborhood was woken by the sound of gunfire just before 6 this morning.
Boom, 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 boom.
Holly Pollock says she never went back to sleep.
We've been watching all day.
Pollock watched from her kitchen window, where she was less than 100 yards away from the crime scene.
We saw 3 ambulances just out the window.
Pollock and other neighbors were told by police to stay indoors.
We shut our garage door and made sure we were all safe. I've got some little kids, so we wanted to make sure we were safe.
Police set up a perimeter running from 3rd East to 13th East and 124 South to 138th South. It was lifted about 10:30 this morning. Hours later, the crime scene near Walden Lane and 133rd South was still taped off. Drivers were asked to take an alternate route. Rumors started to spread.
We saw some police officers with machine guns, shotguns.
Members of the LDS Church were told meetings were canceled. The Bishop of Mountain Point 9th Ward said they resumed at 1 this afternoon. One member said a small group attended.
There's a sense of community and togetherness. I think everyone, just kind of pulls together in times of tragedy.
And neighbors say they're not scared or nervous to be in their neighborhood. They still feel it's a very safe place to live, but they say it was just a very unfortunate event. Keith.
All right, Devin Dolan, thanks. Of course, KSL will continue to follow the story as it continues to develop. You look for our updates on our website, KSL News Radio, the Deseret News, DeseretNews.com, and of course, right here on KSL 5. Once again, here's an update on what we know on the officer-involved shooting in Draper that left Sgt Derek Johnson dead and 2 others in critical condition. Just before 6 o'clock this morning, several residents in the area called 911 to report hearing gunshots. When officers arrived, they found Sgt Johnson and 2 other adults on the scene with gunshot wounds. Sgt Johnson died later at the hospital, and the 2 others remain in critical condition.
And this morning, police contained the area and asked residents to stay in their homes as this was all unfolding. Most of the containment area has now been released, although the area of 4th Street is still under containment. Sgt Johnson was a highly decorated police officer. He leaves behind a wife and a child. A vigil will be held tonight at 8 o'clock at Draper City Hall to honor him.
And we'll have the latest on all of this tonight on KSL 5 News at 10 o'clock. Join us then, everybody.
This is a KSL special report.
Killed in the line of duty, a final salute to Draper Police Sergeant Sgt Johnson.
We want to take a live look right now from Chopper 5, which is outside the Maverick Center, where Sgt Johnson's funeral is set to begin in about 10 minutes. So we hope to get that picture up for you. But we do have team coverage for today's services.
Yeah, we're going to begin with news specialist Haley Smith, who's standing by live outside the Maverick Center since early this morning. Haley, what are you seeing right now as people kind of mill into the Maverick Center?
It's surprisingly quiet out here. That's the first thing I have to say, is everyone funnels in to the Maverick Center. People have just a somber look on their face as they enter. I spoke with many of them who were saying that the profession of law enforcement kind of ties them together. Now, really fast, I want to take a look at this parking lot behind me. It is completely blocked off for law enforcement only. There are hundreds of police officers from around the state, almost every department in the state, as well as officers from Wyoming, Nevada, and Idaho, here to support the Johnson family. I've watched as these officers have filed in from different departments. The support and the unity that's felt by this law enforcement profession is just remarkable. It's something that you kind of have to be here to see how unified they are and how they just want to support the family. Now, I spoke with dozens of officers today, all of them saying the same thing, that they just couldn't sit around knowing that someone, that a brother, in a sense, to them has fallen in the line of duty. Now, Corporal Greg Turnbow with the Springville Police Department, he says that this has kind of made him do a gut check with his department, realizing the danger that comes with this profession, and sending their best wishes out to this family. Now, scout troops even stepping up. I've watched as they've placed hundreds of these flags that you can see throughout the Maverick Center, on the lawns, on the roads that the procession line will be going through. At 7 o'clock this morning, they were out in full force trying to finish and put them up. Now, another thing that's been handed out here today is the program that will be outlining how the funeral will go today. A beautiful program. Among the 8 speakers that will be speaking today, we have Governor Gary Herbert, who will be talking, as well as one of the Quorum of the 70 for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. A lot of officers say that today will be a day to remember as they come and they are unified. They said that it's chilling to see so many out here to support, and that they, again, give their best wishes to this family, and that they just couldn't sit at home. Again, they wanted to be here, they wanted to support, and as I'm here watching this, it truly is something remarkable to see how they all come together and make sure that no one is left behind in this effort. I'm reporting live out here in West Valley City. I will continue to bring the updates of KSL 5 News at noon, and again, we're also going to be live streaming the funeral services as they happen at 11 o'clock on KSL.com. Scott and Lori.
Okay, we'll check back with you in just a little bit, Haley. Thank you. And once the funeral services are over this afternoon, the funeral procession will make its way to Larkin Sunset Garden Cemetery in Sandy.
Yeah, thousands of people are expected to line the procession route as it winds its way through the county. Thousands of people lining the streets are showing up at the funeral services, and they're from so many different law enforcement agencies, not just from Salt Lake County, not just from Utah. You've seen them come from all over the country. And Sam, we're going to bring you in. Is it quiet there as you're standing along the street as people are silent looking at this procession?
You know, I think people here are just standing here in respect. No one's really talking. The roar of the motorcycles can obviously be heard as they pass by. And now we can see coming just behind the motorcycles here, just about a block away, passing through 900 East right now, is the hearse. And you can see that there's a special police escort of just a few motorcycles that are passing by the hearse. And I'm going to pause here for just a moment out of respect as the hearse passes by. And there in the limousines behind, you can see the family members. I could see Sergeant Johnson's father with the window rolled down, waving to the crowd and telling them thank you. Just a touching and emotional scene to see so many people who are here in their support. And now we're seeing just behind them all of the Draper police cars, the Draper police officers who are now following the hearse and continuing on here in the procession here at 123rd South. We want to point out that the procession will take a turn here in just a couple of blocks, and it will take a north route there on the Draper Parkway, which turns into 1700 East, and then they will be making their way north several blocks to near 106 South. That is where the Larkin Sunset Gardens is located, and that is where the final honors will be given to Sergeant Johnson. Still watching more Draper police officers, now the animal services units passing by us here at our location at about 1000 East as the hearse continues to make its way. And as you can see there, we can see the preschool children right here with their flowers. They brought a sign standing here in respect. Probably for a lot of them, they're not understanding exactly what is going on, but it'll be a conversation for their teachers and parents to have with these children to help them understand the scope of what is going on here today.
Truly a classroom of life experience for these students and for everybody involved with this. Is again the line of people along 123rd. There hasn't been a break in the crowds of people since they got off I-15.
And they will certainly be there for a while because, as we've seen, this procession stretches 4 miles. And we've been looking at the Maverick Center, and it seems like all of the cars have since left. That was just moments ago. And they are headed towards, of course, Larkin Sunset Gardens in Sandy, where we find Jed Bull, who is standing by with the latest there. Is there any activity yet there, Jed?
Well, a lot of preparation, but certainly the hearse has not arrived and the family cars have not arrived. That's who we're expecting first. I'm going to pan over this way a little bit. As all the streets are, the roads here in Larkin Sunset Gardens are also lined with flags. They're billowing beautifully in the wind today because of the stiff breeze that we have. And as you look down this row of flags, this is the entrance where the hearse is going to come in. And I also understand that 2 family cars are going to come in this way. Because of that long procession, certainly there's going to have to be some staging time before they actually begin the interment ceremony. I understand that the family is going to maybe catch a bite to eat, have an opportunity to rest in an air-conditioned RV out of the hot sun while everybody gets in position. Obviously, there are going to be people who are parked on roads all around the cemetery. And as you can see, we have Patriot Guard riders who are carrying flags in and are starting to create a border around the ceremonial, the gravesite area. So people are starting to get in position for where they plan to be during the ceremony. And as we continue to pan around, right there you can see this is the gravesite area with a couple of those portable chapels to keep the hot sun off of everyone. And as we continue to pan around a little bit, you'll also see the wreaths of honor that have been brought here by a number of different agencies. We have one there, Draper City Police on the edge. You can see the UHP flower wreath as well. So a lot of preparation going on, a very solemn air right now, and we're still awaiting the arrival of the hearse and the first couple of family cars. And we understand it's probably some time after they first arrive before everybody gets into position where they can actually begin the ceremony. Lori?
All right, Jed Bull standing by there live. We'll come back to you in just a moment as soon as those cars approach the cemetery.